Welcome back to WRPL, All Things Consume, a podcast where we talk about what we are watching, reading, playing, listening to. My name's Ben.
And I'm Steve.
This episode was brought to us by a tweet from a fan who wanted to know what our favorite movies were in each genre. That is a mighty large task, so we're going to do 10 of the most popular genres right now, and maybe we could come back later some other time and get some more of the niche ones. How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing good, Ben. How are you?
Good. Did you have trouble making your list?
Only with one or two, and I kind of had an idea of what I wanted to pick anyway. It was just, all right, let me go and Google and make sure I'm not missing anything.
Yes.
Because as many films as you and I have seen, I think it's easy to go like, we have a snap judgment, and then we go down the list and go like, oh, I forgot about that movie. Damn, that movie was great. I don't know now. So,
yeah.
But there was, of the 10 categories we picked, I think 6 or 7. It was just like, off the bat.
Instantly.
Yeah.
I probably had the hardest time with drama and foreign films. I think it was just too late in my brain. Couldn't remember what a foreign film was. So I was just blank. And then when things came to me, it was like, oh yeah, duh. And drama was real tough. But
well, I figured that foreign would kind of be the easiest one to pick, because I don't know about you. Like, I've seen several foreign films, but I think if I had to pick a top 10 of foreign films, it'd be easy, because I think I've maybe only seen 10 foreign films. And the ones I've seen, I've loved. But
when I was looking at list, it was just like, seen it. Oh yeah, that is considered a foreign film. Like, there's 2 on here that, well, one would...
So something shot in Canada, you'd be like, well, that's a foreign film. Like, technically, yes, but...
No, nothing like that. But just films that's like, this is just a top 10 film no matter what, and I don't think of it as a foreign film.
Okay, fair enough. I imagine 90% of people who have seen a foreign film are like, Parasite's my favorite, because Parasite's the only one you've ever seen.
Yes, and it's the most recent one.
Yeah.
Or they just go, Squid Game!
All right, so
top 10 genre picks. Let's start with a fun one. Let's start with a laugh and a chuckle and a guffaw. Comedy,
okay. Going big.
Steve, what is the funniest movie of all time?
Well, I'll say this is one of the categories that I had the hardest time with, because do I go with something that just makes me laugh nonstop? Because I've seen comedy movies where it's just like, holy shit, this movie made me laugh all the way through. But then, like, once I knew the jokes and watched it a second time, it's like, okay, like, I don't know if I ever need to see this movie again.
Okay.
And there's movies I've watched a bunch of times that maybe aren't as funny, but I think are just more enjoyable.
Mm-hmm. And some movies get funnier.
Yeah. So some just real quick honorable mentions. I won't go into why, but we have Basketball, which is a movie that I love, and it's silly and dumb, and I don't know if it necessarily holds up, but it holds a special place in my heart, just because of how just nonstop funny that movie is. And I know to a lot of people watching that, you'd be like, this is dumb. Like, I wouldn't bring a girl and show this movie on a date or anything, per se. Not that it's like offensive, it's just like dumb.
I wouldn't show maybe Orgasmo, but Basketball, I think I would show Basketball over Team America.
Oh, yeah. I just mean that it's dumb. It's not for everybody. And then,
I thought you said you weren't going to explain.
Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. So Basketball...
I'm going to fall into that same thing, too. It's like, well, this is why I didn't
It's just, I love talking about movies so much.
Just listen to me talk about movies.
Yeah. So Basketball is an honorable mention, and Monty Python and the Holy Grail is another one that I grew up watching and really, really loved. But my favorite comedy film of all time is Tommy Boy.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah. I thought about this a lot, and something like Basketball makes me laugh nonstop. Something like Monty Python is just comedy classic. Even though most British humor I'm not a fan of, I think this one just transcends a lot of comedy. But Tommy Boy is something that I think is just a great film in general. And I think the best comedies have a lot of heart, and I think Tommy Boy does. It's a film where, you know, Chris Farley's dad dies in it, and it's just, you have this heart-wrenching funeral, and then you have him and David Spade's comedy duo, like the Odd Couple kind of thing, just on a road trip scenario.
Road trip movies always lean so easy for comedy. It's like, what crazy thing are you going to run into next?
But I like that it's grounded in reality, and I think Chris Farley is one of the greatest comedians ever. And whenever someone asks me, like, if you could have dinner with someone, living or dead, who would it be? Living, it'd be somebody else. But if I could bring back someone from the dead for one day, or just in general, if I could bring back somebody from the dead, it would be Chris Farley. Just because I would have liked to have seen what he could have made in the future. And I think Tommy Boy is just not just a great comedy, but a great movie in general.
I was always a little more partial to Black Sheep. I don't know why. I know Tommy Boy has better jokes and is way more quotable, but I just remember watching Black Sheep a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, I really like Black Sheep as well, but for whatever reason, it just, that film hasn't stood the test of time.
Sure.
But I actually saw some of Beverly Hills Ninja somewhat recently, because I think I was just bored one night and I just put on a random movie just as background noise. And as bad as that movie is, because Chris Farley is so charming in it, it's still kind of good.
No,
like
I never watched it.
I mean, it's not that funny, and a lot of it doesn't make sense. But just this big fat white guy doing kung fu, I don't know. There's something about it, I think, that just works.
Yeah.
So Tommy Boy is my favorite comedy of all time.
Okay. Well, I also love comedy. I have a couple of runners up as well. Groundhog Day. Just great. Such an amazing written and talk about heart. Superbad and 40-Year-Old Virgin really hits a special place in my heart of relatability of situations and just some of the greatest comedians in their prime. But the number one greatest comedy of all time is South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut.
Okay.
Never have I laughed so hard in a movie that this movie I saw more times in theater than anything else. I want to say 6.
Jesus.
And I'd say every time I caught a new joke, because there were so many times I would laugh and laugh so long, you miss 7 seconds of dialogue and you miss that joke. And so then your second time you see it, you're catching new things. It's the total package. It is a tightly written story that involves like 4 leads who all have something to do independent of everyone, but they all come together so perfectly. The music is excellent. I mean, it was up for best song. Damn you, Tarzan soundtrack.
Fucking Bill Collins.
It's just, there's nothing wrong with that movie. There's no flaws. I mean, I guess maybe it could be crude. If it's not your humor, it could be full of flaws. But if you're a fan of South Park, they've done nothing better than that movie.
Yeah, I remember when that movie came out, it wasn't long after where like digital downloads were a thing, and I was too young to like have access to this stuff. Like I was barely even allowed to see South Park. So I think at this point I never even saw the movie, but I remember my sister was dating someone who had like the entire soundtrack, I think, on his computer, and I listened to Uncle Fucker and Kyle's Mom countless times. And those aren't even like the best songs on there. It's just, I don't know.
Uncle Fucker is one of my favorites because that's early in the movie, and it starts with like Quiet Mountain Town. And I knew it was a musical going in, and the show had plenty of songs, but I was just like, oh damn, is this whole thing going to be a musical? I don't want that. And then Uncle Fucker comes in, and it is the funniest thing I've ever seen, and my mind is blown, and I'm just in for the ride the whole time. And I also own the soundtrack, loved it. Every song is a knockout hit. Satan's song is my favorite. Is the greatest character.
We can't do it for rights, but
let's go to the next one. All right.
Good choice.
Yeah, thank you. Number 2.
Your choice is good too, Steve.
Oh yeah, no, your choice is also adequate. Number 2, science fiction.
Ooh.
I'll go first this time.
Okay, trade off.
I only 2 things really jumped out at me. So much science fiction is action oriented. So my favorite movie of all time should be this selection, which is Aliens. But it's not.
Wow. I thought this was the one thing I guaranteed I know the answer to.
No, it's just because it is mainly a action movie with a sci-fi coating on top of it.
Sure.
Like Alien is like a horror movie with a sci-fi coating. So my runner-up is Existenz. If you've never seen it, it's Existenz. But it's really about kind of... I'm not going to even talk about Existenz. If you haven't seen it, watch Existenz. I highly recommend it. But my favorite sci-fi movie of all time is 12 Monkeys.
Okay.
It has a little bit of everything. You got some time travel. You get some crazy virus pandemic. You have like a revolution and crazy people. You get one of probably the last great performances from Bruce Willis before he started phoning it in. And then you get early Brad Pitt, who's just chewing the scenery and going all out, but it's totally working. It's beautiful and haunting and has good music. It's just such a fun sci-fi movie.
Was this Terry Gilliam?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I saw 12 Monkeys, I think, at the wrong time. It was in that stage of my life where I was just kind of discovering film, and I heard things about 12 Monkeys, so I was like, all right, let me watch this. And I feel like I remember watching going like, this feels a little pretentious. I think if I watch it now, I'd have a deeper... I remember watching and going like, I can tell something is special here.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember liking it for the most part, but it's been so long since I've seen it, I couldn't really tell you much about it other than Bruce Willis is time traveling and Brad Pitt's in it.
Yep.
But that's about all I could tell you. So I think that's a movie worth, for me at least, worth a rewatch, just so I can go like, oh yeah, this is better or worse than I remember.
I agree. Yes, you should rewatch it. What about you?
So when it comes to sci-fi, all the big sci-fi stuff is fun. Something dealing with aliens or grand space battles or whatever. Like all that seems really cool. But I like my sci-fi a little bit more grounded. So this is my pick for not only sci-fi film, but one of the best films ever made, and that is Children of Men.
Ah.
Yeah. So it's not traditional sci-fi in the sense of, they're in space or it's 100 years in the future or anything like that. It's very much, it could happen 10 years from now, really. And I remember going in to see this movie, not knowing anything about it. I think I saw one trailer, and it was Theater 13.
Psycho.
Yeah. And when I was in there, it was maybe 12 other people. And just after the opening scene of this movie, I was so sold. Just from that explosion in the coffee shop that I didn't see coming, and just this woman walking through the smoke, like missing her arm. I was like, holy shit, I don't even know what's going on, but like I am in it, because that shot is just so great. Yeah. Made by one of the greatest filmmakers out right now, Alfonso Cuarón, or however you say his name. But yeah, this movie is incredible. Like, it's as close to a perfect movie as you can get, from the cinematography to the acting to the directing to the score. It's all so great, and I can't recommend it enough. And it's just the world building that is established, and without even necessarily like saying anything, like it's just all there on the screen, and like no shot is wasted. And like you can just like trash on the streets, and like they never have a line of dialogue. We're just like, oh, like the garbage men quit their jobs because everyone knows like society's dying and there's no future. It's just little details like that where it's just like you can just tell that this world has been lived in and everything's been thought out. I mean, it's not force feeding you anything. It just gives you exactly what you need to tell the story, and it's so simple but so intense throughout the whole thing, and it's also effective, and it's just one of the best movies ever made. And I recommend it to everybody, whether you like movies or not. Watch Children of Men, because you can find something that applies just as much now as it will if this future ever actually comes to be.
I can't see anybody disliking this movie. Like, you obviously aren't paying attention if you come out of Children of Men and going, that's not very good.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine you don't like it if you're like, someone's like, oh, let's watch a movie, and you're like, well, I'm in a comedy movie. I'm like, oh, we're watching Children of Men.
Sure.
And you're like, oh shit, I didn't want to watch this kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's it's a perfect film, and I could probably talk about it for an hour about certain shots and everything that I love. It definitely set the stage of why I love tracking shots so much. Mm-hmm. I'm sure it's not the first film I ever saw do it, but the final tracking shot in the movie, I remember watching going like, this is incredible. And then it wasn't until like it's 3 minutes in where I'm like, wait. It took me out of it because I was like, we haven't cut away from anything. Like, holy shit. Like, how do they do this? Mm-hmm. And obviously there's some splicing in there. It's not all one real continuous shot. But it's done so seamlessly. It was one of the first... It was a filmmaking experience to where, I had to step away because I was just like, oh, I didn't even realize I'm watching a movie anymore. Mm-hmm. And until it, went on just so long, I was like, this is different. And it's fantastic.
Hard agree, Steve. All right. Let's... sci-fi's a little gloomy and dour. Let's bring some love to the table. What's your favorite romance movie?
Okay, so this one... I was trying to decide, do I go romantic comedy? Do I go for more of a straight romance? Because, would I qualify romantic comedy more in the category, comedy category? And ultimately I decided, it doesn't really matter. But I had some runners up. One, Casablanca, all-time classic. Just a, great film. I know you're not huge on older films.
Yeah.
I think it just... There's a reason it stood the test of time, and I think it really works. Also, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
It's a runner-up on my list.
So that is a romance film that, for the whole time, you're kind of just like, man, what a fucking bummer love is.
Yeah.
But by the end, it does have that little glimmer of hope, and you're just like, you know what? Love is great.
It may be a bummer, and it may be the most awful thing to go through, but it's worth it.
Yeah. And just... That was also another movie I saw in my formative film watching years, where I think I saw it on IFC channel or something, and just go I don't know how the director's doing any of this, but it's incredible.
Yeah, he's great.
But
that's not even your number one.
That's not my number one.
All right.
My number one is a romance film, but it actually encapsulates a lot of different genres, but it's a romance through and through, and that is The Princess Bride.
Oh, okay.
And
this could be your action adventure or your fantasy.
Yeah, it covers... This is if you took the story of Lord of the Rings and just made it all about Aragorn and Arwen, mm-hmm. but made it comical. Mm-hmm. So, and it's weird that we're talking about this today, because I actually just got done watching The Princess Bride with my fiance.
Oh, okay.
And we played the Princess Bride board game by Ravenberg. So today has been a very Princess Bride filled day, so it really solidified my choice. But man, what just a fun, great film. It's another film that kind of feels perfect. Obviously I think there's shots that don't hold up, and it's nothing that particularly in terms of the filmmaking quality that really stands out. It's just, other than the dialogue, I think it's one of the most quotable movies of all time, but it's just all about true love, and true love conquers all, and just this story of a hero trying to get to his girl, and mm-hmm. all the wacky characters he meets along the way, and all their fun little bits, and it's just a joy to watch. And it's only just shy above an hour and a half.
Yeah. So
it's real tight and gives you everything you need, and it's just adorable. And it's one of those movies I think that you could watch 100 times and you still wouldn't be
mm-hmm.
bored with it.
I think it's timeless. It's good for small children who maybe not have been exposed to certain genres of movies, and it's a good intro for them.
And I think what also works about it is you have the beginning where it's the grandpa telling his mm-hmm. grandson the story, and the grandson's like, oh, is this a kissing book? Mm-hmm. It's not something you'd expect young boys to enjoy. And I think that the movie really does, this is a good entryway for any child to go, okay, you could write this off as a romance movie, and it's not really for guys, but I think it's got everything guys would like. Mm-hmm. And I think it's the Dread Pirate Roberts and the Inigo Montoya fight is one of the best sword fights in movies. Mm-hmm. Rewatching it today, it really holds up. It's just a great, fun, loving movie.
And Andre the Giant.
Love
that guy.
Anybody want to be that?
Well, for my favorite romance movie, it's a little movie that you may not know. It's called Happy Accidents. Has Marissa Tomei and Vincent D'Onofrio. Have I made you watch this yet?
You have not.
Oh, man. It's the best. So...
I think I've heard of the title, but I couldn't tell you anything.
Marissa Tomei is kind of unlucky in love. Everybody has some sort of, like, weird quirk. They're, former Jews. They're Jews for Jesus, or they're leather boys, and, they're just weirdos. So she's a loser in love, and she swears off guys, and she meets Vincent D'Onofrio, and he's perfect for her. There's no baggage, and then the baggage drops, and it turns out he's from the future. And he says he's like 1,000 years in the future, and he's traveled back in time for kind of like vacation. And she's just like, oh great, another one. But she likes him so much, she's like, fuck it, I'm going to just lean into it. So she just accepts that, yep, he's from the future, and asks a million questions, and he always has an answer for something, and their relationships has their ups and downs, and it's a really cute story with a real fun ending and a silly little concept, but it's taken very seriously. It's a great little romantic movie, which I'm not a big fan of this genre, especially romantic comedies, because they're usually not that funny. I don't watch love as my escapism.
Yeah.
I want the blood and the guts and the fire and the explosions and stuff.
The
like
real
that.
sexy stuff.
The more realistic stuff,
Sure.
I've experienced more car crashes than meet cutes.
Good God.
Actually, I don't even know if that's true. But yeah, Happy Accidents. Highly recommend. Okay, so next one would be fantasy. I'm going first.
I feel like
you should go first.
No, you could go first.
We all know what yours is.
Yeah, we all know what mine is if you've listened to any episode of this podcast, so I won't even talk about it too much. So
okay, so then you go first.
I'll go first.
Knock it out real quick.
I don't even have... This one was the easiest for me, and I don't even have runners-up because they all pale in comparison to this film. And you can say it's cliche, but there's a reason it's cliche. It's because it's the greatest film ever made, and that's Lord of the Rings is my favorite fantasy film of all time. Perfect filmmaking, perfect casting, perfect production design, score, direction, just everything about it. It's the greatest. Theatrical version, extended edition, they're all great. Go watch the behind the scenes, all 400 hours of it. All of it's fascinating. It's filmmaking at its purest, and it's a piece of like literal magic that may never exist again. And it's the greatest, and it still makes me cry to this day. And I think even it's one of those franchises, at least so far, where so many franchises nowadays will have a sequel, like let's say Ghostbusters Afterlife, or they'll have a sequel that just doesn't do justice to the first one. And then you have something like The Hobbit, which a lot of people have complained about, and I totally understand everything about that. But I think Lord of the Rings is so great that while The Hobbit pales in comparison to The Lord of the Rings, I think there's still great stuff in The Hobbit. So as a franchise as a whole, it still is even the weak stuff hasn't tarnished this thing's legacy, because it can stand on its own without the other one. And
it is definitely the prequels of those. I think they do what they do to Lord of the Rings is what the prequels does to Star Wars.
I disagree.
Maybe not as bad, but no, actually, I would rather watch the prequels than The Hobbit.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not me, but I think the best stuff in The Hobbit outweighs the best stuff in Star Wars.
Maybe. But I'd also say the good stuff of Star Wars comes maybe in smaller doses, but quicker, and there's more of them, where Hobbit has long stretches of I don't give a fuck.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, anything else? Because after this, you never get to mention Lord of the Rings again.
Disagree, but okay. No, there's nothing else I need to say. It's the greatest film of all time.
Well, this one was also very easy for me. I didn't have any other runners up. It's Willow. Willow is the best fantasy movie out there. It has a little bit of everything. It's got different lands with different types of people. You have your magic evil overlord and their weird henchmen. You got sword fights on horseback and great warriors, and there's a love story and destiny and honor and duty and monsters. It has all those things, but it doesn't need to spread it over 10 hours to tell you that story. You also have kind of a fellowship of a band of people that are trying to return a thing to a thing. They're returning a baby to the human world, and it feels really lived in. It doesn't feel, I always say like Xena or Hercules, where it's like, yeah, that's a set in the California mountains. This feels like a real world with real people. It's just so fun. If you had any complaints, it would be like, oh, the special effects don't hold up. But who cares? It's got stop motion. It was one of the first movies to use morphing animation, and I think it still looks great, even if it's simpler than things you can do on your cell phone. It's just so much fun, and Val Kilmer's greatest role, I think. It's like this and Top Secret. He's so good in this. And I'm a little biased. I had a huge crush on Saoirse, and Bab Morta is one of my favorite villains. She just has a great look.
I saw Willow once over a decade ago, so I really remember nothing from it. I remember going like, this is cute, but at that point I had already seen Lord of the Rings a 1,000 times. So, and not that everything needs to be compared to Lord of the Rings, but I remember enjoying Willow, and I remember the special effects being dated, but that special effects are one of those things I can easily overlook. Like, I think there's movies that are just so good, like even when they have real shitty special effects, it really doesn't matter all that much. It doesn't necessarily take me out of the film by any means. Are you excited for I can't remember if it's a sequel film or sequel. It's too late. But everybody's too old. Bab Morta is dead in real life. Like so many of them are too old. If they wanted to, what a weird thing to bring back. Like no one really cared about Willow when it came out.
There's some book sequels, but but that's it. Like if you're going to redo it, do an animated thing. Completely start fresh. I don't need any of the original cast because you're going to get like one of the 7 and it's going to be weird. So, no, I'm not super excited for that. It's unnecessary. It's a perfect little movie on its own. You don't really need to do more.
All right.
Fantasy.
Solid choice.
Stuff, yeah. God, yeah. There's not a lot of others.
Yeah, I mean, I think Lord of the Rings did it so right that everything else will just be like, well, it's not Lord of the Rings, or it's just copying off of Lord of the Rings.
The only other thing I can maybe say would be like Legend, and has a really good look, and it's fun, and the effects are great, but it's a little dreamy and la-di-da, artsy farts, but still pretty cool. All right, this one, as soon as I found my foreign film, I was like, oh yeah, duh, because it's in my top 5 movies of all time. Mm-hmm. But I forget that it is a foreign film. So here's my runners-up. Amelie, adorable.
Sure.
One of the cutest and well-shot movies. Old Boy, what a great story. Amazing. Mm-hmm. Don't watch the remake. And one that I constantly forget is a foreign film, Pan's Labyrinth.
Yeah.
That's a foreign film. It feels like so much more of a...
I didn't even think about those 3 until you said them, and I do love those films.
Yeah.
They're great. But they're not my runners-up, but I've definitely... Those are more memorable to me than my runners-up.
Okay.
So that's weird. Which is funny, because I totally forgot about them, too. So.
Yeah. But my favorite foreign film of all time is Run, Lola, Run, from Germany. Tom Tykwer and Franca Potente, and a guy, I can't remember his name. But pretty much, simple story. He loses a bunch of money, and he has to get it back. And so while he's trying to do something, Lola's trying to get that money back. And the story is told 3 different times where she misses a step and falls down the stairs. So she loses some time. So she doesn't hit that bus. She has to run down a different street. And because of those, a pedestrian's a little further down the road, and she bumps into them and waits it holds her back even longer. So it tells a story of her going and trying to get this money, and then you get another, and you get his side of trying to get the money, and you have 3 different stories of what happens when you just have something slightly different. And it's how my brain works. I'm always constantly thinking, what if you go left instead of right, you eat this instead of that. And this movie puts it on the screen with just a fast, hard charging techno beat pumping soundtrack. It's just a lot of fun, visually interesting, and it's probably, I'm a little biased, but it's just one of the most fun, and it doesn't ever slow down.
You own that one, right?
I do. You need to borrow it.
I will.
That and Willow and Existence.
I've seen Willow.
But you said it's been a while.
It has been a while.
So what's your favorite foreign film?
So some runners up. I kind of forgot about these movies because I don't go into my owned DVD cabinet anymore because everything's streaming. But as I was trying to collect this list, I was like, all right, let me go through the movies I own and see if anything pops out. I got these 2 from Blockbuster after Blockbuster was going out of business over a decade ago, I think. And so they were basically just like, everything was real cheap. And I was like, oh, they're getting rid of them anyway? Sure. And so the first one is called Sin Nombre. And this is a story basically about a young girl and I believe her boyfriend who get in some trouble with a local Mexican gang, and so they like go on the run and they're just trying to get to the border in order to escape this life in Mexico. And it's just kind of like a real, both beautiful and intense story of just these like basically kids who are in this situation that you and I would never be in, and just like they're just trying to survive. And it's really great and shot really well. Cary Joji Fukunaga, who directed True Detective and Beasts of Southern Wild, like real talented director. I think this was his first film.
Didn't he do something recently?
He directed the latest James Bond. Got it. Yeah. So it set him on the path to be a real talented director. Well, obviously he was a real talented, someone who's making quality stuff now. So that's my runner-up, one of my runners-up, and the second one is a French film called A Prophet, which is about a guy who goes to prison, and the first half of this movie is a real intense sort of prison drama with him like dealing with prison gangs and trying to survive and like becoming basically joining this gang in order to survive, and then him getting out and like doing hits and stuff, and it's just this real intense gangster crime drama, and it's just a phenomenally great film. Reminiscent of, your Goodfellas and that kind of stuff, but in a French setting. But the greatest, or my favorite foreign film of all time is City of God.
I knew it.
Yeah. So, once again, I guess most of these picks I'm choosing are in my formative years of, filming.
Because no movies were good before or after. Yeah. Only when I was in the prime of my movie watching
Between
life.
2003 and 2008 is when all the best films have been made.
1999 is the best year.
Yes.
Take your whole freaking 10 years, and I could boil it down to 1 year.
99 to 2009, that decade. So, City of God, yeah. Oscar nominated. I believe the director got Best Director for this film. Basically the story of a couple of kids from when they were 7 years old up until when they're now like 17, 18, and their life in Brazil and growing up around gangs, and some join gangs, and one kid's trying to get out of the gang life and wants to be a photographer, but all of his friends are gangsters, and so he's like integrated in this world but trying to survive. And it's one of the best films ever made, and you can't watch it with subtitles. I don't think it really does it justice, and it's all based on a true story. And all.
Oh, you watch this dubbed?
Oh, okay. No. What?
You said you can't watch it with subtitles.
Oh, I'm sorry. You can't watch it dubbed. You watch it with subtitles. Like, watch it how it's intended.
Okay.
And nobody from this movie other than one girl who was the girl from I Am Legend. I think her name's Alice Braga. Like, she's gone on to, do other stuff, but all these people that the director hired are essentially non-actors, and this is kind of like their first role, and they all just fucking crush it. It's an incredible piece that I think most people haven't seen. Like, if you go on IMDb top 250, I think it's in the top 20. Like, in terms of film fans, it's one of the best films ever made. But most people haven't seen it. So when people are like, "Oh, have you seen Parasite?" It's like, yeah, Parasite's great. I love Parasite. But have you seen City of God? And especially now that I believe that came out in 2003. I think it came out the same year as Lord of the Rings, or it came out in 2002. It doesn't matter. Anyway. Yes, City of God's great. There is a sequel that I do own, but I've never watched.
Oh yeah,
called Children of God, I think is the sequel. I hear it's pretty good, but obviously not up to the snuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, City of God, great, based on true story. It's all super fascinating. It just, I guess, I've just drawn to these worlds of the crime in other countries, because it's just crazy that this kind of place that just seems like if you dropped a bomb on it, this is what it would look like, but these people live here. And it's so fascinating, and especially seeing it through children's eyes is also really captivating stuff.
All right, next genre, horror. I'm excited to see what you put down for horror.
Okay,
because this is not your bag.
This is the category I care about the least.
Was it hard to pick one though?
Kind of. But it was more like, because typically there's a vibe I go for when I look at my horror, and this one kind of isn't that vibe in the traditional sense.
Okay.
But it does two things that I like the most.
Lay it on me.
Yeah. Want me to go first? Okay, great. So some runners up. I have It Follows. Great little indie film. Cool soundtrack.
Yeah.
Love the concept of this
STD ghost
that just, no matter what will follow you, and you can transfer it to another person and it'll follow them, and it's weird in the sense of just like you don't know what time period this really takes place in, and how they combat it at the end is like a fun kind of little final action piece, and the fact that it's invisible to everyone except for the person who's the most recent recipient of it is real interesting. But like clearly it does have a physical form because it does interact with stuff. Just great little fun indie horror film, which I wish they would make more stuff like this, as opposed to just your traditional jump scare easy money grab crap. And my other runner up is The Shining, which is a classic horror film, and this would have been my number one for a long time, because I just remember the first time I saw it, just how unsettling I felt it was, because like I don't know what any of this means, and usually I hate that kind of stuff. Like I'm so confused by what I'm seeing, and like what does any of this mean. But I just remember feeling like, oh, this is making me uncomfortable, but in the way I think films should, or at least horror films should. But my favorite horror movie is something moderately recent as opposed to some of my other ones. And it's my pick because not only does it make me feel unsettled, but because it does genuinely have quality scares, and that movie is Hereditary. Yeah. I think anyone who has seen a horror movie in the past 10 years would have this on there. Probably top 5, definitely top 10, because I don't think I've ever seen a movie that has effectively scared me so much than this film. The vibe that the first kind of scare in it is when Toni Collette is like working in her office and she turns out the light, and then you kind of just see the outline of her mom, and it's just done so well. Like for a second you can't tell if it's there or not either, and then it flips on the light and it's gone. And just from that moment I was like, oh shit. And like that, like the first scare, I'm already like, all right, I'm uncomfortable. And then it just gets more and more heightened. There's a death of a character like halfway through, I guess, or maybe a little bit pretty early on, that I like didn't see coming, that just shocked me to my core that I just saw that. And then everything after that, like it does the haunted house, it does the possession, it does cults. It takes every horror trope and just does it the best. And while still all very self-contained and simple, and obviously horror gets overlooked at the Oscars a lot, but pretty much everyone who saw this was just like, how did Toni Collette not get an Oscar nomination? Because she's so good in this. And then even her son, who's sort of the second lead of the movie, everything he does is great too. And just, yeah, it's terrifying and unsettling, and it made me like horror, and I don't like horror films. So
yeah,
that's my pick.
Good pick. I could see other people going like, is it really horror? Is that more of a thriller? But shut the fuck up. It's a horror movie.
It's all horror.
I do have a runner-up. It's Day of the Dead. One of my favorite movies. Love it. It's fantastic. Love it. Love it so much. Best zombie movie, Day of the Dead. But that's
the black and white one? The original? No. Or that's Dawn of the Dead? What was the original?
Night of the Living Dead
is
the black and white. The Mall is Dawn of the Dead. Day of the Dead is they're in a bunker underground.
Okay.
And it's got Bub the Zombie, the greatest zombie of all time. It's just fantastic. But there's no questions about what the best horror movie is, and it's The Thing. The Thing has it all, except for women. It has great practical... There's no women in The Thing. The only semi-feminine anything is there's a voice on the chess computer that he's playing that's a woman's voice.
Okay.
But he throws his drink into the computer real quick and kills her. So there's not any women for long. It's got the best practical effects, the most gonzo concepts of what a monster is, and the constant lurking fear of your best friend could be a monster in your friend suit. It's flawless. It's so well acted, and the atmosphere. And I'm not a big John Carpenter fan. I'm not a big fan of Halloween or Big Trouble in Little China. There's just a lot of stuff he makes that I don't like, but this is absolutely his best. Kills it. Great.
Yeah, it's weird to think like there's a monster that is considered one of the greatest movie monsters of all time, and you don't know what it is.
Don't know what it looks like.
Don't know what it looks like. Everyone just kind of it's just like a black blob kind of thing. It's like, is it though? You really can't tell because you just kind of see a vague outline in the ice, right? Don't you see?
Yeah. I mean, it's like it kind of looks like it could be insectoid-like, or who knows? But
yeah.
But when he takes the defibrillators and he puts it through the dude's chest and it breaks open and then teeth come out of the chest cavity and bite the dude's arms off, it's just the coolest effect. Love it. And the remake / prequel isn't the worst thing ever. That it could have been a lot better if a studio didn't fuck it up. But
now, am I making this up, or there's a part where there's a head and like the head grows legs and that's how it like scurries away, right? Yeah, that set the tone for me to where like I can't imagine anything scarier. Like if you ask me what's the scariest thing you can imagine, it's like some human head on like a spider body. I don't know what it is about it, but like that combo to me is disgusting.
So like an It Chapter 2?
Oh yeah, when I saw that I was like, I hate this. Oh no, it was the first one.
No, wasn't it part 2? Because he's dead and this is just one of the flashback scenes coming out of the fridge, or was that part 1? Really?
Yeah, I think it was part 1.
Oh,
because I think he was just like, your friend's dead, but he wasn't actually dead. It was just pretending.
Okay.
I mean, he becomes a spider, but it's like, I don't care if you have like a human torso, like half your body is attached to a spider half. It's just like when the spider's face is a human face, it really, I don't like it. So human heads should not have spider legs. I fucking hate it.
I agree. I think that is a pretty hot take. That heads shouldn't have spider legs. I think most people would disagree with you.
Call me old-fashioned.
These kids today with their spider leg heads. Okay, our 7th on the list is family-friendly or kids films. I think this one's a little easier because you just kind of go, what's the Disney movie that I grew up with, or what's the Pixar movie, which I have. I have The Little Mermaid or Wreck-It Ralph. Those are my runners-up. They're good stories. I don't think people would agree with Little Mermaid. It's lessons are maybe a little outdated, but the best family-friendly kids film is Who Framed Roger Rabbit. It's maybe not as kid-friendly as some would say, but back in the day, they made things scary for kids. Kids would die in movies, and it could be creepy. And this has some adult themes and subject matter, and I saw this.
There's a baby who smokes a cigar.
Baby smokes a cigar. I mean,
there's bullets.
I didn't know what the word framed meant when I saw this movie. I was just like, it's a cartoon thing, so it's going to be cool. And yeah, maybe it took a few rewatches when I got older to understand what the hell was going on, but it is so interesting to look at. And even as a kid, you realize, like, okay, I know cartoons and humans can't interact, but they're passing each other cups and bumping into things and affecting each other. This has to be real. So it just really blew my little child's mind. And then years later in rewatches, you realize how good the story is and how great the filmmaking and the acting is. It's fantastic. But yes, it's not for little kids, so I'll say Wreck-It Ralph. How about that?
Yeah, I mean, I would show this movie to my kid if and when I have them. But I will say, I think the first time I saw this, you talk about movies that have, for kids movies that have scenes that are kind of fucked up, and everyone's kind of go-to is Willy Wonka on the boat and everything.
Sure.
But I don't think anything freaked me out more, like, as a child, because I didn't quite get what was going on, than I forget the villain's name.
Doom, Judge Doom.
Judge Doom getting run over by the steamroller and just going, wah, 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 and just, like, seeing all that, like, his toon version of himself is so fucking scary. My
mom put her hand over my eyes when he was getting run over.
Yeah, I might have been 10 or something when I first saw that movie, and I remember liking it, and then just it got to that part, I was like, oh, this is a little much.
I think the hardest scene for a kid to watch would be the shoe being dipped in
fuck that
dip. Fuck that shoe! That shoe was just like rubbing against his foot. He was just scared, and he just snatches him up and dunks him and deletes him.
It's a dark movie. I'm surprised you chose this as family friendly, because I'm not sure if I would consider it a family film. But
I don't know where else I could put this movie in for a genre. But like, you could say comedy because it has comedic moments, but it's not a comedy. You could say drama because it's a dramatic story, but there's a lot of other elements that I think takes it away from being a pure drama. So I think family film is where it's gotta have to stay.
I will say that what I love about this film, which, like, bums me out, it's really, the Avengers before the Avengers in terms of just massive crossover that we'll never see again.
Mm-hmm. I don't think there's any Hanna-Barbera in it, which probably makes sense because I don't think the time frame that it's in Hanna-Barbera was around. But it's got like Felix the Cat and
just
Betty Boop.
Corporate greed and capitalism has destroyed chances of this kind of thing. I mean, we kind of get in a little bit now, maybe with the Spider-Man Sony stuff.
Sure.
But to see Bugs Bunny and Mickey Mouse share the screen, and have all these cartoons that you grew up with and love just all in one place and interacting with each other, it's phenomenal. Like, I think if there's ever a sequel to anything, or something that should have gotten a sequel, it should have been this film.
Yeah. And it was going to be...
I mean, it's too late now. I wouldn't want to.
Yeah. And it would look like shit. I bet they would make it look awful. Like, did you see Tom and Jerry?
It would be Space Jam 2.
Okay.
So, I did not see
Tom and Jerry may be worse than Space Jam. No, I take that back.
You saw Tom and Jerry?
Yeah, it was free on HBO. So it was just like, fuck it, I'll watch it. But their interaction of cartoon to human, it's embarrassing. There's no effort at all compared to Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Like, he bumps a physical lamp and it swings around casting shadows, and they animate that all perfectly. It's insane. Where Tom and Jerry, it's just cut to Chloe Grace Moretz and then cut down to the other characters. If they're going to interact, it's like a high five where all she has to do is like put her hand in the air and they'll animate Jerry just jumping up and smacking it. It's awful. But yeah, there should have been a sequel, which was going to be Toon Platoon, and it was like Toons drafted into the Vietnam Army.
Oh, that would have been amazing.
And it's just like, since Toons can't die, you put a gun in their hand and let them go, fight the Vietnam. And like, what a fucked up concept.
And that's a family film too.
So what's your family film, kids movie?
So when I think this category should have been animated. We won't get into whatever.
Okay. So people, you could tweet at us. Animated movie. Animated is a medium, not a genre.
I didn't disagree with that.
So you can't have an animated category.
Then I'm not going to argue with you, but
because like Iron Giant is more than just like, oh fuck, Iron Giant. All right. No, I like Wreck-It Ralph better. But it's more than just a cartoon movie, you know. So it's just like best animated movie. I think is doing disservice because it's more than just drawings.
Sure.
Whatever.
And if you thought that the Iron Giant was a drama that you wanted to put in best drama, I wouldn't have a problem with it. I was just saying like animated is a different thing, and then you could like when I think kids and family, I think Sandlot, Cheaper by the Dozen, like these other live action things. I was just going animated because it's a specific world of kids movie.
Maybe on the second go around. How about that?
Sure. Well, either way, I chose animated stuff, so that's what it's gonna be. So my runners up. This category was hard for me because I really enjoy animated movies. There's so few that I would say that I love. Like my number one choice could be pretty much interchangeable with these three. First, I'd like to give a shout out to Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who if you made a top 10 list of animated films, I think let's just say they have 5. All 5 would be in the top 10 somewhere, because I don't think they've made a bad animated film yet.
Yeah, probably.
Or at least produced. Runner-up, Zootopia. This movie, I didn't expect anything from when I saw the trailer, and I was just like, okay, I'll go see it in the theater. And then I think I ended up seeing it twice in theaters because of how much I liked it. And then I saw it once, and then I was like, oh, you haven't seen Zootopia? And then I brought someone else to see it again. And I just think it's just a great little beautifully animated film. And if you're one of those people who like really are into the rabbit because she's thick or whatever, stop. That's not a reason. That's not a reason to like this movie, really. But I just like the rabbit and the fox's dynamic with each other.
Sexual chemistry.
Sexual chemistry. Yep, it's pretty hot. I like the mystery behind it, and just it's this entire world that they've built in the city and the different zones and how thought out it was. And like, there's your rainforest area, there's your Arctic area, there's your sand area, and just how seamless this city filled with different animals all coexist, and uncovering why predators are attacking other people. And then you have this allegory for racism and all that stuff, and you do it but without ever beating you over the head with it. It's not like, oh, you're making me learn a lesson. It's just like, oh, that's a neat way to like present that idea. Sure.
Is that your pick, or is that a runner-up?
No, that's a runner-up. Sorry.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's right. I keep
forgetting we're not talking about it. So this other one is my runner-up. Almost is my number one choice, but I decided against it. And that is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Is my number 2 choice, I guess, because I think it does everything that an animated film should do. It's a ton of fun, and it brings in, and it's got great comedy, produced by Phil Lord and Chris Miller. And if you love Spider-Man, it's probably the best Spider-Man film out. And what's great about it is not only does it capture a comic book look, but also pulls in all the obviously other Spider-Verses and works their animation style in seamlessly with this other one. And just the blend of animation with storytelling, it just works across the board and doesn't seem out of place. And if you love superheroes and comic books and animated stuff and Spider-Man, it's all there, and I don't think there's any real weak parts of the movie. If there's a weak part, I think it doesn't hit me as emotionally much as my number 1 pick does. So my number 1 pick is The Incredibles.
Yep.
Yeah.
I thought about that as well.
Yeah. So if you look at Pixar's catalog of work, I think The Incredibles is the least Disney-esque film of them. All the other Pixar films feel, I think, targeted towards kids, where this just feels like a film that just happens to be animated.
Yeah.
And
they didn't, it's like, we know we can't do this live action yet, so let's just animate it.
And I think it's just, the reason it's my number one pick is because it's just a very tight film. It's got a very strong story, and it takes your superhero trope or your superheroes and puts them in a family setting. And, you know, it kind of presented you the Sokovia Accords before the Sokovia Accords. Obviously, there's the comic books that did that first. Mm-hmm. But it's just like, what if you just eliminate superheroes? Like, how do these people, you know, who have these powers live in a world where they're not allowed to do the thing they're kind of meant to do? And then you have Syndrome, who's one of the, you know, great villains of all time. A ton of fun, but also very sinister, and a connection to Mr. Incredible, and, you know, wiping out all these heroes and everything, and just beautifully shot too. Like the lava waterfall background, and that opens up, and the girl walks through it, and there's some real great shots in this film. All the action is like really fun, like Dash running across the water, getting chased by the flying frisbee copter things. Yeah. Like it's such a cool action superhero film, and a family film, and the jokes work. And it's a shame that the second one doesn't live up to it at all. Because, like, if you, other than Toy Story, if you never gave me any other Pixar sequels, I'd be fine with it.
Sure.
But if you asked me to make a sequel to any animated film, it'd be The Incredibles. Mm-hmm. Like, The Incredibles had laid the groundwork for sequels. And it's a shame that the sequel didn't quite do it. And it's also, like, not particularly silly, other than like the Jack stuff.
Sure. A little bit of Dash with the like putting a pin on his teacher's seat and stuff.
Well, no, but I mean, I imagine that's something like a kid would do. I mean, silly like cartoon stuff.
Okay.
Jack's a little cartoonish, where everyone else sort of is grounded more in reality, and you know the sadness of raising children and having a shitty 9-to-5 and like having to deal with your boss, and it's like, I shouldn't have to deal with you when I used to save people. Also, great opening. I think Bon Voyage is one of the funniest, like best, like what a great idea. Like a French mime character who specializes in explosives. Bon Voyage is such a fucking great name. So Incredibles, I think, is not just a great animated film, but just a great film.
And a really good villain death that I'm surprised is in it. Like, getting sucked into a turbine, chopped up, and then exploded. You know, that's pretty dark. You don't see a bunch of it, but I could have totally see Disney going, no, not this. Now you do something where, like, he gets sucked back, hits his head on the wing, and gets knocked out, and then gets arrested or something. But they're like, nope, we're going to murder this guy.
Yeah.
He's done. Okay, number 8, Thriller. This one was pretty easy. I had my pick instantly. I chose one more runner-up just to give it the shout-out that it deserves. But so you should see Frailty. Bill Paxton starts hearing voices from God saying, kill demons, gets his sons involved. Great story. Matthew McConaughey is also in it. But my number one Thriller, I don't think this is even a question, but it's 7. What can I say about 7 besides, like, one of the best looking, best acted. I'm a sucker for the 7 Deadly Sins in general, but a great use use it as a serial killer. It sucks that it's Kevin Spacey, but he's so good in the movie. He's one of the best villains, and maybe that helps the movie even more, knowing that he's a bad dude. When you look at John Doe, it's like, yeah, that is a bad dude. I know for sure. And one of the greatest twist endings, or I shouldn't say twist, but like you don't see it coming endings, that is still incredibly quotable. It's pretty fucked up that the most quotable thing from that movie is like the most heart-wrenching line. But I love everything about this. The flawless movie. 7.
So I was looking at other thrillers and trying to think of runners-up, and like there's a lot of thrillers I really enjoy, but there's none that really stood out to me other than my pick, which is 7.
Yeah!
So we have one together.
I was wondering if we were going to match on any, but I didn't think that was going to be possible.
Yeah, no. Like you said, what else could it be? It seems cliche, but cliches are there for a reason, because I can't imagine anything more impressive thriller-wise than Seven. Everyone talks about Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs, and that's a great one too. And he was only on screen for 8 minutes, and he wins an Oscar. But talk about a guy who was on screen for maybe less. I mean, maybe around the same amount of time, probably.
Around the same.
And Kevin Spacey just fucking kills it, and the fact that you don't know anything about him, and he is just John Doe, and he's just a regular dude. He's not necessarily, he's not eating people or anything. He's just on this mission to complete his quest, and like I said, the 7 Deadly Sins are like a real interesting way to do it. And it was the movie that I think popularized sort of this 7 Deadly Sins idea, which has now been seen in tons of stuff. But yeah, like the way that he completed it was Saw before Saw in a way. Like, you have your woman who's like, I sliced up your face, you can take the pills and kill yourself, or you can live your life
and call the cops,
but you'd be
mangled for the rest of your life,
or
disfigured.
Like one of the scariest things that I've ever seen, like I remember made me jump the first time I saw it, was Sloth. Oh my god, that shit was so scary. Just seeing that guy's body, who's like, there's no way he could be alive, and then him being alive, and and then cuts to the next scene where just like, he basically tortured him for a year straight. Is just that's the stuff that women listen to these like true crime podcasts for. It's just like, what's the most terrifying fucked up thing I can imagine a human being doing? That's basically it.
Bedridden, having like someone feed you, keep you alive at the most bare minimum, keep you addicted to drugs, take care of your bodily function needs, and just keep adding air fresheners to the room to cover up your stink.
Yeah, and just like, if there was one part I wish they kind of showed more, it would have been the doctor. And like, can you imagine being a doctor and that thing rolls into the fucking, like, obviously you've seen people mangled and you've seen the human body torn apart in all sorts of ways, but for that thing to come in, essentially be a human zombie.
Yeah, this thing's like mummified almost.
Yeah, practically mummified, and like it still exists, and he's just like, yeah, it's amazing he's still alive. Like, he doesn't have brain function.
I could shine a light in his eyes and it would kill him.
Yeah, just like, it's like, it's just
so
awful.
Is sloth your most fucked up sin out of all of them?
Well,
it's hard because they're all awful.
They're all awful.
But the one of like, he takes the pound of flesh from the dude's side. That's not so bad. He had to cut his own stomach or his own flab off. That's nothing compared to getting your nose cut off or being force fed till you burst. Or what my think is the worst,
I know what
is
you're
lust.
Say. Yeah,
and it's bad for. It's like, one, okay, you're getting fucked by a knife, so that is awful. But you're probably gonna bleed out and die soon. The person who had to do the fucking with a gun in your mouth, and
which shout out to that actor, because that
dude's awesome,
fantastic
in everything.
Scene. Yeah,
everything he's in. He's even in Alien Resurrection, and his scene is ridiculous. But I love him. I love that guy.
I mean, I think would rather be fucked by the knife than be the sloth guy. Like that just seems.
At least it's over within the day, and you're not going to be.
But yeah, to that like. They always show trauma in movies, and it's always just like someone with a blanket over him, and they're always just like, he made me do things. Where like, that guy, I thought maybe he did it. Like, that's such a good actor in that scene. Like, that movie is just so... But like, what's great about it is that movie is so fucked up, but it never feels like grotesque.
Sure.
Like, it never goes...
It's not Saw.
It's not Saw, yeah.
It's worse than Saw in a lot of sense, but you don't experience it like Saw.
Yeah, it's almost like... It's one of those classic cases of like less is more, and don't show the thing, like let the audience imagination do it for you. Like, yeah, we see the sloth thing, but pretty much we're seeing all the crimes after they happen.
Yeah.
It never shows us the crimes.
You don't see what's in the box.
Yeah.
You only see a little bit of blood smudge on the edges, and that's all you need to see.
And it's just fantastic across the board. Morgan Freeman at his peak.
Yeah.
Brad Pitt at his peak when I think he was just starting to like get out of like the pretty boy role. Like, obviously he's still the pretty boy in this, but like it's one of those movies that's like, damn, this guy can fucking act. And just it's all It's great. Yeah.
So I think we've discovered what's the best movie of all time, the one that we've agreed on. Okay. So 7 beats our favorite movies of all time.
Yeah.
Okay, so next one is action adventure.
Ooh.
I think you go on this one.
Okay. 1 second. So some runners up for action adventure. Cliche. Indiana Jones, best adventure film all time.
Love it.
I won't say which one, just all of them, really.
3.
Die Hard, another classic.
Awesome.
Also
will say 3.
Don't need to say more about that. But this is like my real runner-up.
So there are runner-ups to the runner-up. This is the true runner-up.
Well, it's just like there's nothing I need to say about these two, and I won't go. But the Raid series would be my runner-up.
I'd say Raid 1. I don't like Raid 2.
Oh, yeah?
I mean, maybe the action is good. I don't remember it. I just remember the story being awful.
Well, I think Raid 1 is great because it's simple and because you and I, we saw that together, and you and I had never seen, at least I didn't see anything like that before, and I was just like, holy shit, like I didn't know you could make action movies like this. And I remember we both left that just like we were through the roof the entire drive home, I think, and just like we couldn't stop talking about it because of how fucking cool that movie was. But it's a little weak on story.
Sure.
And then 2, you get a lot more story, but it may have been just a little bit too long because I think it's like the first movie was like 1 hour and 30. This one was 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
But I like 2 quite a bit. But when I think action movies, I think The Raid.
Yeah, whenever it comes to like fighting, like when Shang-Chi was coming out, and it's like, just give me a bunch of Raid-style action scenes and Shang-Chi will be great. And I think they do good with their martial arts, but whenever I want martial arts in something, I always compare it to The Raid.
Yeah.
If it doesn't look like that, I don't give a shit.
Yeah. Like, there's movies that have come close, like Tony Jaa, like Protectors kind of stuff. Like, there's movies that do action really, really well. But I don't think any action film feels quite like The Raid, and I think a lot of films have tried to replicate it since it came out, but none have really hit that peak. And the problem is maybe they're trying to get actors to do fighting as opposed to fighters who you train to act, which I know is kind of hard. It's easier, I think, to teach someone to fight than it is to act.
Yeah.
But that being said, I think the lead is great. And, I apologize for not knowing his name. Iko US. I'm sorry, I'm butchering your name. But anyway, Raid's great. But my number 1.
Oh, that wasn't your number 1.
That wasn't my number 1.
Oh God.
My number 1 favorite action film, Mad Max Fury Road.
Oh yeah, I should have seen that. Yeah.
Yeah. So The Raid blew my mind when I saw it, but this movie, the second it was over, I was like, if this shit doesn't win every Oscar, there's something wrong.
It only won like costume, right?
No, it won a bunch of stuff.
It did? Okay.
It just, didn't win Best Picture or anything, and didn't win Director.
Imagine that. Like, if you're looking at all the years past the best movies, and 1 year it was fucking Mad Max, that'd be crazy. What did win that year?
So that was, I believe, oh shit.
Was it Shape of Water? Was that same year?
I think it might have been Shape of Water. Oh, wait, no. Mad Max was 2015. Doesn't matter. Yep. Whatever it was probably good, but not that good.
Yeah. Unless it was Shape of Water, then I
okay.
I agree. Shape of Water.
I can concede to Shape of Water. But anyway, yeah. So I have only seen the first Mad Max in the Mad Max franchise. I haven't seen Beyond Thunderdome or The Road Warrior or anything like that. So like I wasn't really into the Mad Max universe. But when I saw this, just the way it does vehicle warfare is unlike anything that I've ever seen. And to take a film and shoot it in the desert, where like I think any other director would have made it look so boring, and it's like it's all yellow, but it just feels so vibrant at the same time and colorful, and just pretty much everything in it. But the sandstorm scene is like practical effects, and you have dudes on these swinging pendulums like landing on other stuff, and you're having these big epic fight scenes on top of these like moving vehicles going 60 miles an hour, and just the other world building of these war boys and like believing in Valhalla and like finding it. Like I found out that this was a V8 when they like cross their hands and like that's how they pray. I was like, what a cool fucking move! Like just that little detail, and then you like have just all this like other weird stuff about people like drinking breast milk because it's like what else can you drink because there's no fucking water anywhere, and it could have easily been like over the top and like why is everyone wearing like leather and stuff because like I think the older movies look like a homoerotic sort of wet dream where this one doesn't really. It's just
not as much because people are also like sunburnt, chapped, they have boils. You know, they're not pretty with their little Leatherman mask.
Yeah, and you have a character like I'd say the weakest part of the movie is probably Mad Max himself.
Yes, but I think it's by design.
Yes, and I don't think that's a bad thing. It's just you have a secondary character with Furiosa who's like way more interesting, and I hope that this Anya Taylor-Joy sequel will be good. But yeah, just like so well directed and so visually interesting, and just it's action pretty much the entire way through with only little bits of respite so you can like relax for a second and then immediately jump into another giant set piece, and it's all just so fucking cool, and it like isn't sexualized. There isn't really much cursing. It's like it's not overly violent, but it's just nonstop action and it just works on every level, and I recommend that to anybody as well. It's like, oh, you like action movies? Have you seen Mad Max Fury Road? It'll blow your shit.
Yeah. It will blow your shit.
It'll blow your shit right out your ass, brother.
And then right back in your ass. It's got you coming and going. I agree. Mad Max is great. It's fantastic. But it's not my pick.
Okay.
I picked The Avengers. The Avengers is
2012.
Yes. I could argue for Infinity War, but I think you kind of need to see a bit more to go into that, where I think Avengers you could go in relatively blind and get the gist. It's not nearly as complicated, but no movie takes, and it's funny, like back in the day we'd like, how are you going to take these 7 characters and make them work in a movie? There's no possible way you can do it. And then they do it with like 87 characters in Infinity War and Endgame, and it's like, oh yeah, they made that work like nothing. So you go back to original Avengers and it is just seamless. If everybody gets their time to shine and every character makes sense and has something to do, and there's no action set piece that looks bad, is unentertaining, is unearned, and the infighting and then having to come together as a team, all the themes and stuff just work so well. Avengers is one of the best, most rewatchable movies. I think if I'm going to say like top 3 most rewatchable movies, Infinity War is one of them. There's not a bad scene in that movie. It's incredibly rewatchable. But Avengers is just kind of the perfect action movie.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, last on the list, drama.
The one you've all been waiting for.
Yeah, saved it for the end because
that'll probably be the most boring.
Well, this one was hard for me. Just finding like what is a drama. There's so many things that has a little bit of sci-fi, a little bit of romance or whatever. I wanted to find just a straight drama.
August Osage County.
You too? Oh my god!
Whoa!
I have a couple of runner-ups. Man, I go back and forth on this, but I'm gonna say, let's do runner-up. Hard Candy. We've talked about it.
Ooh,
amazing.
Love Hard Candy.
Adaptation. One of the only good Nicolas Cage movies. That guy sucks. This movie's amazing. And The Prestige. Prestige has a little sci-fi. Is a little bit of a period piece. I mean, it's set in a different time, so yes, it is.
This is still a runner-up.
This is runner-up. Yeah.
Oh, okay. See, I consider The Prestige more of a thriller than a drama, but
okay.
We continue.
No, I can see like thriller. Yeah, I guess there's little bits of them kind of going at each other and stuff. But anyhow, yeah, Prestige, best Nolan movie. But my favorite drama is Monster with Charlize Theron and Christina Ricci.
Oh, okay.
She plays Eileen Wernos, I think is her name. prostitute, killed a man in self-defense who was raping her, and then kind of got a taste for it and started assuming all men who wanted to have sex with prostitutes are all bad people. They all want to murder. And she kind of goes on a killing spree. She falls in love with Christina Ricci's character before some of this, and she's just trying to like get her life right and have this good relationship. But she's a murderer, and it's great. And it's one of the few movies that almost got me to cry. I don't cry. I'm a soulless husk. There's only a few movies that got me, just felt the water starting to build. Nothing ever to even get close to coming out, but there's a part.
So no movie has ever made you do at least a single tear?
No. Wow. I've gotten very close a couple of times. Okay. And like she's telling Christina Ricci, like, you need to go, you need to get on this bus, I'm no good for you, you need to go back home. And Charlize Theron just kills it as this character. There's a reason she won Best Actress. She's so good, and how broken she is at that time. I just felt it welling up in me, and it made me sad. Yeah. So,
but you also, because someone was telling Christina Ricci to go away.
I was like,
the last thing
moron. You want. How can you tell Christina Ricci to go away? She is the best. Yeah. All right, Steve, what's your best drama?
Watch Happy Endings, by the way, folks. It's one of the best sitcoms that deserved more seasons. So, runners up, not surprising, Goodfellas, Shawshank.
Yeah. Green Mile.
Yeah. Movies you can watch over and over again, never get bored. But my favorite drama of all time, and is one of my favorite films, probably number 3 on my all-time favorite films list, is a movie. I'm not a big classic film guy. Like, I haven't gone back a lot to 50s, 60s, 70s,
Citizen Kane's and stuff like that.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. Just because I feel like in general movies are better now.
Yeah, they were done back then.
But there are a few gems that do stand the test of time and just are great even to this day. And one of those gems is 12 Angry Men. It's a movie that takes place entirely in one room where 12 guys talk about the case of a boy who may or may not have murdered his father. And it's just, I think this is another one of those cases of pretty much a perfect film where each actor you don't know anything about going in, and just throughout the course of an hour and a half you learn who these men are, why they are the way they are, why they believe the way they believe, and just seeing the power of one man who is not defying them to justify them, but to give just someone their fair shake. And let's not just, because pretty much every guy in there wanted to just get out of there in 5 minutes, because they're like, yep, you did it, let's all go home and watch the baseball game, because that's what mattered in the 50s. And this guy's like, well, no, I mean, if we're going to send this 17-year-old kid to jail or his death, like, we should at least talk about it. And they're like, all right. And then just through the power of conversation, you just have this movie that's, puts you on the edge of your seat and makes you question maybe your own thought processes. Like, obviously you were in the courtroom, so you don't know the facts, but the movie lays out the facts for you, and like how they sort of deduce these things. And doing research now, some people will go like, well, it's not the best way to show there's a scene where a guy pulls out a knife and it's just like, I found this exact same knife that you say is one of a kind at a store like a block from this kid's house. You're not allowed to do that in the real world. Yeah. But it's just 12 angry men. No. So yeah, it's just I think it's a masterclass of acting and directing, and directed by Sidney Lumet, and just how you can take the most boring looking space and turn into just a fascinating, intense drama that you're engaged in without color, without backgrounds really, other than your painted city skyline. And this is all shot in a studio really. But yeah, if you can tell any story in a 12 by 12 room, I don't know dimensions, or a 6 by 12 room, and make it interesting, like you've told a story effectively. Like it's incredible. It's very hard to do, but yeah, obviously, and it comes from a stage play. Go see the stage play. Go watch the movie. They're all great. Highly recommend.
Now, you said black and white. Doesn't 12 Angry Men have Tony Danza in it? And I'm pretty sure it was in color.
That is the 90s version of 12 Angry Men.
So you're talking about an old movie?
Yes.
Ew. No, I love 12 Angry Men. I saw it in junior high. I think it was the same class that we saw Schindler's List. Like, had to get notes signed to see Schindler's List. And
I'm surprised to let you watch that.
Yeah.
Dope.
Yeah, it was great. But I remember watching 12 Angry Men and just thinking, like playing along, I'm the jury, what do I think? And I remember in the beginning going like, that kid is guilty, there's no question about it. And then having my eyes open by the end and going like, oh my god, the prejudices and stuff. And my preconceived notions. And being a kid, it's kind of like, wow, the power of film and spoken word really can change what you think of someone. It is a pretty profound movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so few films that actually do change, like, the course of, our society. But I think 12 Angry Men is is the case of one of those films that, like, if you've seen that movie, you can't, or I imagine if you have any decency in you, like, if you get, a jury summons and you have to do this for somebody, like, you want to take the time, like, you can't just. But I hear stories all the time about, like, people go like, we're in and out in 5 minutes, and granted, there are cases where it's like it's pretty open and shut, like, it's all there. But when when you as a human are deciding another human's life, you shouldn't just be willy-nilly about it. Like, just take an hour and talk about it.
Yeah.
And I think 12 Angry Men has done that for the justice system, hopefully to some degree.
Well, there you have it. Our top 10 genre films. Is there a genre you'd like us to cover? Maybe a sports film, a war film,
Western,
parody. Maybe you have a specific type of horror movie, like you want to know, our favorite zombie movie or movie based on a video game. There's lots of different genres.
Sure.
We went pretty broad, and we can fine tune some of these other ones. So if you want to tell us what to talk about, hit us up at wrplpodcast@yahoo.com or at wrplpodcast on Twitter. As always, I'm Ben.
And I'm Steve.
Goodbye, everyone.